Hi, this is Wenji from Telecom Paris, Institut Polytechnique de Paris. I'm happy to present our work, The Dark Side of Perceptual Manipulations in VR. In this paper, we collected scenarios where malicious actors use perceptual manipulations to provoke harm to a VR user, and identify the potential attacks and characterize the potential physical harm. We also propose mitigations and countermeasures to against the malicious use of perceptual manipulations. Our work is motivated by virtual physical perceptual manipulations, VPPM, leveraging human perception to direct the user's movements and enable techniques, for example, redirected walking, redirected haptics, and also pseudo-haptic illusions. Perceptual manipulations is different from physical manipulations because systems like electrical muscle stimulation may override the user's physical actions. The user is to some degree aware of having consented to being manipulated. In the contrary, VPPMs create movements by the reaction to the presented perceptual stimuli. Creating movements using VPPMs raised a question whether a user understands they are being manipulated. So this may vary to their prior consent and knowledge. However, most of the time, VPPMs are developed or designed to be imperceptible, which means it's below our perception threshold so that we're not able to perceive the subtle difference of being manipulated. Lastly, the intention behind using VPPM is open to abuse. For example, recent work has started to explore the immersive VR attack, where they can direct or position a user inside the safety boundary and control their position. We explore the dark side of perceptual manipulations, where malicious actors use imperceptible VPPMs to provoke physical harm to the VR user unknowingly without consent. We focus on the physical harm, an action causing hurt or damage to the VR user's body, for example, hitting bystanders or colliding with the environment. We define the threat model that a malicious actor has intention to harm the user by tricking them into install malware and having access to the environment and tracking data. Therefore, malicious actors are able to apply VPPMs to manipulate the user and provoke harm. We want to explore how could malicious actors abuse VPPMs and what potential physical harm could they provoke to the VR user by manipulating their body motions. To address these questions, one challenge is that VPPMs are still not used by most of the applications in VR. Therefore, we choose speculative design workshop as our method to both critique current practices and reflect on future technologies in VR. We invited VR experts and designers to participate in our study. After the instruction of the workshop, participants had to speculate on the scenarios that manipulate VR users' body motions to provoke physical harm using VPPM. 19 scenarios were collected. For the detailed description, please see our paper. Here I will select two scenarios. The first one is called Magic Maze, where a VR user explores a VR maze inside a physical building, and at one point they think they are going towards the door, but the system redirected them to a stairway and make them fall over. Another example is Start a Fight, where the head-mounted display incorporates bystanders as an enemy in VR, so that the VR user will might hit the bystanders because they believe it's a VR avatar. It's an avatar in VR. Next, participants had to identify specific dimensions by positioning the presented scenarios in each workshop. And after that, they rated the most relevant ones. For example, the severity of harm, where we started from mild pain, like eye strain and muscle issue, to fall over, get punctured, and even to extreme cases like death. Another example is perceived agency, where it states to what degree a VR user believes the physical harm or physical action was caused by themselves. If no agency, they might think it's system's fault. However, if we use VPPMs and make them consider it's an action created by themselves, they might think it's their fault and fall into the trick again. So we applied a semantic analysis to find underlying themes in the transcribed data from the workshop. We found two classes of attacks and a characterization of physical harm. So I will focus on the classification of attacks. And we identify puppetry attacks that control physical actions of different body parts of a VR user, for example, walking in an environment or arm movement. The other class is called mismatching attack. It creates a difference of information between the virtual and physical environment to make a misinterpretation for the VR user. For example, in a one-to-one mapping environment, we can impose a virtual chair, but without the physical counterpart. We call it false positive attack, so that the VR user might sit on it and fall over. And the other example, we call it swapping, is the scenario of start a fight, where we incorporate a physical object with different virtual appearance. We also developed two applications, stepping on and hitting face, to demonstrate subverting existing VPPMs in HCI. These examples can create a missing step or collision between the headset and controller, and in order to show a potential risk of VPPMs. After exploring the dark side of VPPMs, we propose mitigations and preventative recommendations against it. We include 5 different levels from individual to platform and community. Here I focus the role of our research community, and for the rest of the discussion, please see our paper. We want to raise the awareness about the malicious use of VPPMs in our research community. VPPMs, in fact, we are hacking human perceptions. The results like enabling infinite walking, haptics, and a higher presence are all positive outcomes. Meanwhile, we are also exposing the vulnerability of our human perception. We suggest the future research should publish VPPMs with the potential threats and risk in mind. And finally, here are the takeaway messages from our talk. VPPMs can lead to malicious use of our perceptual vulnerabilities. And we presented potential attacks of VPPMs and the physical harm, for example, puppetry attack and the mismatching attack. And finally, HCI community should become more cautious publishing VPPMs and also reflect on the potential for abuse. Thank you for your attention, and this is the end of my presentation. I'm grateful to all of my collaborators, Elise, Mark, Mohammed, Eric, Sam, and Yang, and our participants. Thanks for all of their time and contributions.